Hey everybody, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our special guest today is Dave Bray. He's a singer, songwriter, guitarist, and the ringmaster of a good time. He's also a United States Navy veteran who served as an 8404 Fleet Marine Force corpsman for the 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, stationed out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how that works, let me break it down. There are no medics in the Marine Corps. The Navy provides the Marines with administrative support, hospitals, churches, chaplains, ships, and combat medics who take to the battlefield with the priority of saving Marine Corps lives. And this job is one I admire a great deal because it was the same job my cousin Tony Carbolito performed when he was killed in action in Afghanistan. It's a tough job, and it requires the best, the smartest, and the bravest. In Dave's case, he's also the most charismatic. He's now a full-time touring musician who continues to dedicate himself and his talents to supporting veteran, fire, police, and first responder causes as an entertainer and master of ceremonies. He embodies music on a mission, combining moving melodies with powerful messages of patriotism and service. He's a great guy and he rocks hard. So once again, if you'll indulge me to shout out my cousin Tony Boy, we love you and we miss you. And to his FMF corpsman brother Dave Bray, thank you for your service and for continuing the good work. Rock on, Doc. Everybody, please enjoy this conversation with our special guest, Dave Bray.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Dave Bray USA, and you are listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, Dave Bray is on the show. I also got Scott Husing, of course, our co-host on many, many shows. And we're talking to Dave Bray. You guys can definitely check him out at davebrayusa.com. You can get everything there, shirts, tour dates, all that kind of stuff. And Dave Bray, one of the things that's cool about him is he's also an American hero because he was a corpsman in the Navy. And so we love that. But also, like, this is one of the great things about the military. And Scott, I know you've experienced this. You, in a unit of, let's say, like divisional size, you know, when you've got 5,000 or 25,000 people, you'll have world-class athletes, you'll have a number of PhDs, you'll have these great musicians. And it's, Dave, I've listened to your stuff, and it's like, not that you don't know this, but it's legit. Like, you aren't a guy who's like, I'll sing karaoke sometimes in the club, and I'll play my guitar. No, like, you actually are a fantastic musician and really do a great job. I love the arrangements and the God Bless America, everything. It's so cool. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
It's good to be here, and it's funny that you say karaoke because I get people bust my balls every once in a while because I will do a show to track every once in a while. So instead of having a live band and all that stuff there, because I do a lot of traveling shows, I'll play to a track and it has a multimedia cameras and everything like that. So some of the instrumentation, and then I play along with it with an acoustic or electric guitar. But so it's kind of funny you say karaoke, but
Yeah.
people do bust my balls in the music community because I do go out and play the track. But it's actually just a more efficient, updated way of being able to perform music and keep it exciting.
People don't know is, it's not a hobby for Dave. He is a professional musician, veteran turned musician, and music on a mission is so full of that powerful sound, and it is patriotic. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's moving. And so Dave and I met in Dallas, Fort Worth. We golfed together, 18 holes. We got the record for like the longest round of golf in Texas history, I think. But then Dave sang the national anthem at the gala that we had. And I tell you, man, everybody in that room was almost moved to tears just by the way he sang the national anthem. It is just, it's inspirational. I mean, there really is no other word to describe it. The what he puts into the music, the way it comes across, it's just really great, and everybody needs to listen to this.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, when you try to find that emotive place with your voice, you must have figured out at some point that you were more than just a regular singer, that you had that little extra something special. Because, like, I can go out and see, like, when that really hot chick sings and every dude in the club and a lot of the chicks are like, she's singing directly to me. Like, that's that magic thing that you folks up on stage have. When did you figure out you thought you had that?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I think a lot of where I write from is probably why that happens. And I try to really write from a place of healing, either for myself or for others. I look at where we are as a country and as a nation, and the amount of the period of time that people actually focus on anything is so cut down and so short, that I try to bring them in slowly so that they are sort of conjured into an emotion that they haven't had in a long time, whether it be heartache or loss or joy or faith, or that feeling that sometimes when you get in church and you're singing out loud and you haven't sung in a while, or whatever that feeling is. I try to make sure that the connection that I have is basically from my pen to the paper, from the audio you hear to your ears directly. I want what I write down on paper to be just as important as how it's delivered. And if you really get down into what Scott was saying about the national anthem, the words to that song alone have the ability to give people goosebumps. They have the ability, just the words, how it's written, has the ability to touch into somebody's soul, because it's being written from a perspective of a guy who was standing on a ship watching his countrymen just get defeated time and time again. And they were using the mast of a ship to hold this flag up, and the guys down below are the prisoners of war asking, is the flag still there? Is the flag still there? And this guy is sitting there screaming, yes, it's still there. The Star Spangled Banner yet waves. And if you put yourself into that time period and that mind frame of watching Americans, it'd be like America versus Great Britain in a war, all happening at the Inner Harbor. It's Navy versus Army. It's the biggest culmination of, each other's forces, and all put together into one moment and one time. It's the second revolution of, are we going to stand as a nation or not? And we'd already defeated the English once. We're back here again, and they're trying to come up the canal. They burnt Washington, D.C. James Madison's on the run. The country this is it. This is the last stand. And like the movie Red Dawn, everybody makes that last stand and all these great war movies. This was it. And still nobody has ever made a great movie about this, and somebody should, because this night was absolutely phenomenal. I speak about this in schools to kids because I want them to understand that it's not just a song. It started out as a poem, and to be able to have the words to that poem reach down into you and make you feel a certain way about patriotism and your country is just as vital as anything that I try to write down. I try to make everything compare to that piece in some way, shape, or form. But whether, like I said, whatever that emotion is, for me, that Star Spangled Banner, that national anthem, that is the direct link to our descendants and to the men and women who fought at that, hallowed piece of ground at Fort McHenry. That's our link in our day today. Every time we remember that song, that's it. And so I try to do the same with my music. I want it to be historic. I want it to be personal. And I want it to really reach down and touch you personally and physically and emotionally.
I love that we're having this conversation because, obviously the whole Colin Kaepernick take a knee conversation has happened, but it's always pointed in that direction. But you're right. We are fighting the greatest, at the time, the greatest army or military that had ever been assembled, that had taken on and not lost really to hardly anybody at all up to that point in time. This was an impossible fight for both sides. They've got to provide logistics, which made it hard for them. And we have not a ragtag force, but not what you would call a premier force. And these are the critical moments where we're allowed to be. We don't have a queen on the wall. I say this all the time. Canada has a queen. Australia has a queen. We don't. And it's these fights here. And all of those moments that come after that, whether you're talking about the Battle of Gettysburg or Spanish-American War, any of these different things are subsequent from that moment when the flag did yet wave. And it's okay to be like, yeah, this is our country. We're not perfect. No country is. But damn it, we have done a lot of good things. We've come through a lot of impossible things, and it's okay to remember those things in a positive light. It does not have to be a negative thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like we've turned around and repaid that debt in the First and Second World War to anyone who's butthurt about, that first ass whooping and the second one that we gave him. But like I said, we came back and we realized, hey, as we grow as people in this world and as a country, I don't feel like we took it all for granted and just, said, okay, it's ours. I always go back to that image of Daffy Duck down in the cave with all the gold. Mine, 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 mine. You know what I mean? America has taken upon itself to be the global, everybody calls us the global police, but aside from that, we're the global missionaries. We're the global humanitarian effort that bails out every single country we possibly can because of the blessings and the lifeboat that we were given because of that situation that happened from England and from Europe. Our lifeboat, yes, is one for all the globe to enjoy, and for people who love peace and who love freedom. Come on, get on board. But for anybody else who's trying to tarnish it, unchange the ideals and the mentality or not assimilate, no, you're not welcome. And there's a big problem with that in today's society that I should be welcome here to do whatever I want. No, you should be welcome here. You got that right. You're welcome here. But there are some factions and rules that need to be, kept in place. And I think a lot of people from around the world are disillusioned by what it is to come and be a part of the American experiment. It's not just showing up and you get to party like a rock star. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. There's a lot of blood and sweat and tears that went into making this place the way it is. And the way that we made it is a reason. And if you want to get involved, by all means, get involved. But if you come in here to try to change how we got here, then we got problems.
I like to quote Joey Jones when he says there's a sense of patriotic guilt in America. And for those who don't know who Joey is, he's another American hero who sacrificed, his own body in the war on terror. And that patriotic guilt, like we owe the rest of the world something for what we have. How do we move past that? And I think that music is one of those great unifiers. And you're in such a unique position to share that and to bring us back into that where you do bridge that gap, whether it's through writing or speaking or singing or podcasting, being able to be a conduit for people to come together. That's a powerful thing. And I think it's something that I wish more people would do. I'm really glad we've got this coalition of veteran artists and veteran musicians and authors that are willing to do this. And I think we're in a unique position to move forward to really send that message to everyone.
Well, again, Scott, I mean, you give a lot of credit to others. And I one thing I met by learning you for the first time or meeting you from the first time was learning about how important your personal message was. And I'm not trying to float your little dinghy down the river any faster, but I appreciate and I took to heart a lot of the things we spoke about, even on the golf course. And it's, despite my amazing golf game, which I'm sure was leaving everyone in awe, we did have some good conversations out there. And I think that one thing I took away from speaking with you and helping you find all your lost balls was being able to sit and say, hey, what are you doing out there in the veteran community? And you being able to have an answer for me, not just saying, hey, I'm starting a company that sells this or sells that. It was, no, I'm going out and I'm actually creating human connection. And your message of the power of that connection has even helped me in as the last 2 or 3 weeks, just with my music. I've sent out some of my stuff that I've been Daffy Ducking down in the cave saying, no, I don't want anybody to get any of this stuff. And rightfully so. I've been through a lot of, stuff with people taking and plagiarizing and using some of my materials, but I'm to the point now where, hey, get it out there. And if somebody wants to take advantage of it and use it in the wrong direction, so be it. At least it gets out there. I've been told by multiple people that God has given me a gift, and I'm more than happy to let people hear it as long as they follow my rules. But that's not how I need to do that. I need to accept that if it's a gift to me, it should be a gift to everyone else as well. And I've been trying to do that more in my life, and it has paid off in spades for me because I've opened up a bunch of relationships with different artists in the DC comic realm as well as in the music realm. And I just want to say thank you for that little teardrop of inspiration that you gave me on the golf course and explaining that power of connection and that human connection. That meant a lot to me, and it's helped me for sure.
I think this show, what Pete brings together too, is a great example. It's very emblematic of what I'm always talking about, the power of human connection in sharing our contacts and this network of people who really want to put some skin in the game and get involved. And I'm happy you're part of it, brother.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the artistry part. So how does someone who's a corpsman, I mean, that's a pretty significant job. You're not quite a doctor, but you're certainly more than an EMT. But how does someone like that get into the ability to go all over the nation touring and playing and making music?
Well, I think first off, there has to be an initial spark there. It can't be just like, hey, I'm going to get out of the military and now I'm going to start doing something like this. I mean, I'm sure that can happen. I spent a lot of time touring as a musician that didn't tour across the country for a long time. You know, I spent many a night in a smoky VFW playing for 3.5 hours and all the typical covers that you've heard at every event or at every bar you've been at that a band played. So I've cut my teeth plenty of times in plenty of different ways. But what I found was through the music that I wrote when I was in my last project, I found that there's ways to connect with people and then ways to turn people off. And if you directly attack somebody else in order to gain fans from a different or the same mentality as you, so basically saying, hey, if I make fun of this guy hard enough, this guy over here is definitely going to like me because I'm choosing basically a friend of or enemy of my friend or a friend of my enemy is a friend of mine, however that works. I realized that didn't really work in the artistic world because art is it's more of a soulful communication. It's more of a lean towards how I feel spiritually and how I represent what I've been given. And I want you to see it the way I see it. Not, hey, I want you to think a certain way because this is how I see it. But, hey, this is how I see it. I want you to make up your own sort of mind about it. And I think that is where an artist and, somebody who's out there making art or just trying to make art are different. And I wanted to, explain that a little bit because I feel now the way my direction of art is and the way that my music is being written, some of it is bubblegum and some of it's total saccharine. I'll be 100%, but it's also stuff that I have to get out because it's in me. Okay. So if it's a junk song, whether it's, about, some guy sitting in a bar and drinking too much whiskey and crying in his beer, whatever, that's what hit me at the moment. I'll write it, I'll record it, I'll do whatever, I'll put it on a shelf. But if it's something that moves me and I feel so compelled to actually sit and get it, not only right, but perfect and hit it over and over again, and then take it to others and see what they think and then fix and reorganize and restructure and then release it, I feel like that is the true definition of from where I started to where I am now. And how does a Naval Hospital corpsman, FMF doc, how did I end up getting out of the military and doing this? I mean, I didn't jump right into doing this. I worked at BAE Systems building the Bradley assault vehicles, the PIMs, the 88 Hercules. I was, working with my hands, and I realized, okay, this is a great job, but there was always music in the side. So it wasn't, I just went directly into this. It wasn't like I popped out of the military, ripped off my uniform, and there was some rock and roller underneath. This is something that is a culmination. I have a wife, 2 kids, 2 sons, they're in middle school. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this when you start really realizing what it is to be an artist and what it is to be a businessman, what it is to be a musician, what it is to be creative. So there's a lot of elements, I guess I could say.
Yeah. But tell everybody who's listening when you started playing guitar. And I started way before Dave, and he's way better than me. So he's got less time as an artist playing an instrument and singing, and yet he's killing it. It just goes to show you that Dave has this natural talent, this gift, and he grabs a hold of that guitar, and something comes through him where I struggle to play a C chord, and that's about the extent of my musical ability on the guitar. But it really is something that you really have this gift, and it's born in you, and it's something you feel, and you're driven to pursue that passion. And I think that's really cool. Despite my lack of musical talent, I make up for in other ways, I like to think. But Dave only started playing the guitar and then boom, it just hit you. That light came on.
Yeah, and he's making way big a deal out of my guitar playing than what needs to be made. But be able to go out and actually sing and play at the same time, like roughly 2.5, 3 years ago, was the first time I actually ever did it in public. It was never anything that I ever thought what I was going to be able to use to, make a living or entertain. I would sit and try to play songs just like him, try to play chords, looking at tabs, and it's all French and Spanish to me. I couldn't read a lick of music, but to actually sit down with a guitar and look at a chord structure and create harmonies and melodies around that, I feel like that's where my strength lies. It's not about, again, if you look at some of the top 40 songs in country music, they're 3 chords, but it's how you dance your content around those 3 chords. And I think, if you can relate this to anything in business, it's how you invest, how you strategize, and how you are going to grow and continue. And same thing. I mean, there's these standard building blocks in anything in life that you can find true, genuine success, even with the family. It's mother, father, and faith. Those are 3 building blocks that can bring a family and make a family successful. And you look at anything in business or building a home, it's foundation, it's the structure, and it's the roof, right? So all these things, it's how you dance around them, how you dance your lyrics and your message, or your melody and your message around those 3 chords, and where you're going to start and stop them in relation, and how are you going to make something unique out of them. That's the infinity of music. That's the beauty of it, is, a 90-year-old man who hasn't picked up a guitar or anything, can pick one up and strum something that has never been heard before, or sing with it in a way that's never been delivered. So that's the great part about it, is that just like a blank canvas, music is out there to be remastered, recreated, and redone in an infinite amount of ways, even beyond infinite. And I feel like that is the great part about it, and that emotional connective bridge that you can make with somebody through music is one that I feel can't really be connected in any other way. Whether you can do it in cinematography, you can get somebody to tears in cinematography, but 9 times out of 10, there's a backing track happening in that element of that movie that is pulling some of that out of you. So music is definitely something that I consider it sacred. I consider the stage sacred, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate people who actually appreciate what I do and how I do it.
How does your time as a corpsman? I mean, you talk about intimate working, even if you're just in training, you're putting your hands on people and you're caring for them and trying to keep them alive, but also, trying to keep them calm and all the other things that are highly powerful to the person who you're directly caring for and connecting. How does that speak to your music and influence it?
Well, the first song I ever wrote was actually about, he was in my barracks, and he was burned from the neck down to his waist. He was in a fire where jerk caught on fire, and he was scar tissue. And he was a tough guy to get along with, man. He was a tough dude emotionally to get along with. And as a corpsman, as a combat medic trained, emergency medicine trained person, you're used to the acute injuries and fixing those acute injuries, but you're not so used to dealing with the long-term effects of those injuries and how you can help that person post healing and post physical rehabilitation. So there's a couple things. There's a couple elements there. I actually had total ankle replacement surgeries. I've had numerous surgeries on my ankle. So I've been in that down and out position for months and months and months, not being able to get up and walk, not being able to do anything, and depending on other people to help me out. I've also had to deal with those people in the same regard through what I do now. I work alongside of catastrophically wounded veterans to help build smart homes for them through a nonprofit that I work with. So there is a long-term connection. And then finally, that first song that I wrote was one that I wrote because that guy was my roommate. While I was staying at the barracks, while I was at Camp Lejeune, he was my roommate. And he was an angry person. And I tried to get through to him, and I tried to figure out ways to be in that room at the same time without causing strife and issues and those kinds of things. So there's an element of compassion, there's an element of sympathy, and there's an element of empathy. And then you put all those into a bit of a hard knock shell, and you say, okay, well, how can I take what I've learned out of each one of those situations. One being feeling like the victim of, my injuries. The other one, helping somebody come out of being a victim. And the other one, just dealing with somebody who doesn't know how to deal with themselves. So there's a lot of psychological stuff that goes along with that. But beyond that, how do you bring in those stories and those elements and those things from being deployed and being overseas? And, I served in Northern Africa during an issue that happened in Monrovia, Liberia, with the embassy, and seeing what happened, when men are preparing to go to battle and preparing to go to war, and that change and shift in personalities and all those things, to being a veteran, and that same change and shift of personalities after these people get out of the military. How does that all equate? And again, I'm juggling all these things at one time, trying to figure those things out. But if you listen to the songs on Music on a Mission, which is my album, if you listen to the songs, you'll see how I do it. You'll hear how I do it. And I explain to you on the audiobook. This is an audiobook storyteller album. So you'll actually hear me explain to you why those songs are on there, why I wrote them, how I wrote them, and how they came about, and why do I feel like they're important enough to put on a record. And the number one thing that I can say, because we're on a veteran podcast here, and as we look at the veteran community, the one song that is on there is called Warrior Inside. Every single person that swears an oath to this country to serve it swears an oath as a young warrior, a young brave, usually in their late teens or early 20s. They are ready to take on the world. They are ready to make every sacrifice, whether it be in their minds for a college education or to go onto the battlefield and fight to the bloody death. Wherever they feel like they sit, they were willing to wager everything and raise a right hand to be able to do it. Now, when you get out of the military, you don't unraise that hand, and you don't de-oath. You never pull back that oath that you made. And a lot of guys forget because they're not wearing the daily uniform, and they're not going out and continuing the daily the rituals that go along with it, and they're not in the community any longer, and they feel as though that oath doesn't exist. The song Warrior Inside is a song that I wrote to remind them that they have a duty, they have an oath beyond service. You said, "So help me God." That is an eternal oath. That is not between you and your time of service. That is an oath that carries on well beyond and into the grave. And I think if more of our veteran communities would remember that oath, and remember that there was a warrior that took that oath at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and remember that that warrior still exists within them, then they could change their mindset and realize, hey, I've been given a chance to live beyond my veteran and my service years. I should do the best I can with them, and remember the sacrifices that I made and what I did for my country. And that's what the song's about. It's called Warrior Inside. I encourage you guys to go check it out.
Make sure you guys go to Dave's website. Again, it's davebrayusa.com. You could see the tour dates there. You can buy shirts. You can pick up the music. And he's just the all-American guy that you want him to be, and the kind of person that plays shows all over the place at events. You're in Missouri. You're going to be in Galt, which is actually pretty close to my hometown of Benicia. So all my folks up in Benicia should go check you out. But it's really neat. So let me ask you this: as someone who's trying to break into the music industry, and until you've really erupted where you just have like a career that's in perpetual motion, everybody's emerging, right? Even if you're a well-known name, you're always trying to gather fans and build an audience. What have you learned about that process in terms of gathering people that always want to know what you're doing and always got a couple of bucks for you, whether they're buying a shirt or buying a concert ticket or a piece of music? What have you learned about gathering those people?
Relevance, attention span, and continuing to offer and give. And this gets back to Scott and his mission is that human connection. I try to answer every single, whether it be an email or every single message I get on Twitter or on Instagram, or even if it's just hitting like as somebody comments. I think that that's important, because if somebody comments on 3 of your pages or 3, and we have to talk about social media, because that's basically where everything is happening. There's basically nothing happening analog anymore. Everything is either a social media, yay or nay. But I feel like being in touch with those people and trying to answer them, even if it's saying, hey, listen, I apologize for this, or I apologize for that, but I can't get back to you for a while, but thanks for writing in, or thanks for your support. Just anything that says that you acknowledge, because we live in a non-acknowledged society anymore. People don't even look at each other when they talk to each other. And I hate to say I'm getting back to Scott's human connection here, but we're losing human connection in this country. We are losing human connection through the race and through the species because of our phones, because of digital technology. So if we're going to lose this battle without putting up a genuine fight, and I'm not going to lose this battle in my home, and I hope that other fathers and mothers are going to fight to keep their kids engaged in them in a tangible environment instead of what they see on their screens. I feel like if we're going to lose that battle as a society, then there should be a genuine outreach that continues to happen from people who, that go above and beyond to communicate with one another, even if it seems taxing or daunting or pointless or frivolous. For the amount of time it takes, it's important. And I feel like for instance, I'm going to put this out there. Every package that you get, if you order from DaveBrayUSA.com. So if anybody decides that they're going to pull the trigger, they want an autographed CD, or they want one of my awesome t-shirts that are way cooler than anybody else's, and they're the super softest t-shirts you've ever worn, and the most comfortable t-shirts you've ever worn in your life. And I don't put too much ink on them, and then I print them myself. Anyway, if anybody would want any of that stuff, or a challenge coin, I would do the package myself. My kids help me put all the t-shirts and go through all the orders. So if you get something that looks like a 3, that's an M. Some of the writing's a little bad. They're left-handed. I give them a little credit, but I put all that stuff together, and on the outside of every envelope, you can ask anybody that's purchased anything from me. On the outside of every envelope, I always write something. It usually says, "Thank you for your support, your patriotism, and your faith, and God bless you." And then I just handwrite it, Sharpie, boom, send it in the mail. But that compared to something that you get from any other major website, Amazon, which just has the packaging material and a receipt and this bland box, I feel like that's a connection. And what that has done for me over the last 2 years is when that shirt gets ripped or torn, they're like, "Dude, people, do you have that repeat purchase a t-shirt over the years?" You know what I mean? It's so strange, but I love it because they know I'm here. They know that I'm a human. They know that I'm a person. I'm reachable. I'm organic. They can reach out and touch me. They can reach out and I'll speak to them. They can call me, for crying out loud. And I write them just a little thank you note, just a little personal note to them to let them know that I appreciate them. And I don't think that we get enough of that in the world today.
My theory of not having electronic friends, and they're not electronic friends. I was at Illinois State and I was shooting a video saying how grateful I was to be invited back to my university. And this young kid, and I posted this picture online. He goes, "Hey, I really loved what you were saying to your phone and the message that you were talking to your phone." I go, "I wasn't talking to my phone. I'm talking to people. And there's other people on the other side of that device. It's just a conduit, but they're people." And I get it. If you get big and you're famous and you've got hundreds of thousands of followers, is it practical to answer to everybody? Probably not. I mean, it would just be overwhelming. But the ability to want to reach out and to have that personal connection with total strangers, I think, is so impactful. And I love sharing those stories when it goes from social media to being a real personal connection. And the stories like that. So tell us, Dave, what's the most recent?
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
The stories like that. So tell us, Dave, what's the most recent interaction you've had from someone on social media? You've sent them something, they've listened to your song, and they reach out and they share how it's impacted them, because I think those are really the most powerful stories.
Well, I have had, and just this week, one of the best things that could have happened to me. This guy, I needed an artist, and I prayed actually for an artist. I needed a way to make my shirts cooler and to be a graphic artist is something that I would love to be able to do. Got tons of ideas, just can't do it. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a yapper, so I apologize for that. A little too much coffee today. But I'm going to tell you about a connection that I made with Andrew Mangum, who he is an artist. He pens for comic books. He's probably done graphic novels that you've seen on the shelves if you're anybody in the comic book realm. And he reached out to me and he says, hey, listen, I know this is a long shot, but I'm an artist and and I love your music and I love your message. My 13-year-old daughter loves your music and your message. My 18-year-old kid, we really appreciate what you do. I followed you with your last project. Your new project is better and even more touching and riveting. And that just started and sparked a conversation where I was like, man, that's amazing. Thank you. I'm glad you're a fan, just to say thank you. On a side note, I said, what do you do art wise? And then he sends me back some of his images and my jaw hit the floor. And I'm like, man, Andrew, dude, you're a gifted artist. I mean, beyond gifted, but he draws these graphic novels. I mean, some of this stuff is a little risque and would not be considered, by the quote unquote Christian community to be acceptable. And I said, that's crap, man, because, you have a gift to draw those things and you do it and you get yourself in circles. And we were talking about this, as a musician and a rock and roller, I get myself in circles with people who may not be believers and may not be faithful. And this allows me to tell my story of faith, and it allows him to get with these people and tell his story of faith and how he's holding his family together by using faith. So that connection, and this is just one that blossomed, actually turned into me giving a story that I wrote a few years back about a character that I had sort of assembled in my mind. And, he gets this kind of stuff all the time as a graphic, novelist, a graphic artist. Man, I got this idea, I got that idea, but I actually sent him an idea. It was just very quickly penned, but he was like, man, this is actually a really, really strong concept. Have you brought this to anybody else? Have you done any of this? I said, no. I was like, nobody's ever asked for it. Nobody ever really warranted it. And those are the types of things that you never know. Like they're godly connections, they're connections of faith, and they bring people together. But whether anything happens from it or not, being able to meet people like that online from clear across the country and have us have a common connection, behind faith, patriotism, great music, and cool art is one of those things that never would have happened without it. So like you said, a great thing to have is the internet sometimes.
Yeah. And you've never met this guy.
Never met
him face to face. He's just essentially a pen pal. In the old days when we used to correspond via letters and U.S. Postal Service, he's essentially a pen pal. But just like Matt JC, who brought us together, we didn't meet for the longest time. And then we were in Boston, we met, and then he hands me off to a couple other people. We get invited down to Valor Ball with Randall Reed, and you're singing, and I don't know what I was doing. I was playing bad golf. But that connection we make, then it's crazy. But to share that drive to help other veterans, to help other artists, and to really share that message, because everything we did down in Dallas-Fort Worth, by the way, was to help veterans. And the great things that Randall's doing, and Matt JC with Red Lux Productions, and Josh Collins with Operation Torrent. I mean, everything that we were there for that night, that whole weekend, was about veterans at the beginning and the end of the day. And all of our unique skills, writing, speaking, playing guitar, singing, podcasting, everything was brought together. And we're sharing this message, this vital message that it's all right to be proud of your story. It's all right to have dealt with some of the trauma in life and at war, and to get better and to connect and to stay connected. And I love quoting Josh Collins saying, connection is the cure. It really is. I mean, this is a big part of it. And, by sharing your message through song it is immensely powerful. I think every film that I watch as a student of the craft is that underlying tone of the music and how powerful that is. It's a big part of my life. I mean, it's a huge part of Pete's life too, because he does, album wars on, on this show as well. So all three of us are massive music junkies, and I think that's just another really cool connection.
Hey, Dave, you talk a lot about faith, and as a nation, we're sort of in a time of transition, trying to, as science expands further and further out, we're struggling with what faith is. Like, people will say that they're agnostic or atheist, but then they wait for the universe to provide something, which in effect is really God. Like the universe provides, God provides. So help me understand, how do we deal with faith as a society that's ever increasing in its scientific knowledge, and more, I think, as a population, we're not looking to God. We're not taking care of the spirit or the soul.
It's a good question. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question.
I'm looking for God. And how people deal with it. We often, you hear it all the time, like you're believing an imaginary man in the sky, but you're doing something more than that. So what do we do as a people, as a musician? You have faith in your music, but I wouldn't call you like a religious rocker kind of guy. You're not Striper. But how do you reckon faith in what your message is, and be inclusive of folks who aren't necessarily looking for someone to witness to them?
Well, I try to edify the Lord in my message in a way that I feel isn't preachy, and I don't want it to be simply that. And if anything, it's if you hear me bring it up in anything, it's probably in question. Because I want everyone to understand that is probably the most important thing, is to question all of it. I mean, beyond every scientific equation that will prove the existence of the creation of the universe and beyond, will always be a higher power and a God. So it doesn't matter how far you chase him away, he is going to, the second you stop, he is going to continuously grow in the opposite direction that you are fighting to prove. So it's one of those things that when it comes to faith, when it comes to God, when it comes to in Christian faith, the Lord and Jesus Christ, when it comes to those things, I feel like the human spirit is always yearning to try to find a visual connection or a tangible connection with something higher to prove and basically to manifest a belief in itself. So if you can accept it, and that's where, the acceptance of the Lord Jesus Christ as being your Savior, if you can just accept that and put faith in that and give it the Coventry and just allow that to become what you are, you don't have to walk this holier than thou. I call them Macy's Christians, because when you dress them up, they look great, right? You got these Macy's Christians, they're out there, and the keyboard Christians are out there, and all these people are out there edifying and professing and prophesying and screaming at the top of the mountains. But at the end of the day, their skeletons in their closets are just as dark as yours. They don't carry any less garbage than you do. Don't believe or judge them for the cover of their book. I mean, it's one of those things that we're all in this thing together. So I don't even judge those disbelievers. The only thing that I put is as much faith as I possibly can to know and actually be promised a death that is going to be giving me another life. That is a huge thing for a walking, living being to understand. The one thing you have been promised is death. That's not a bad thing if you know what's coming after it and you're prepared to experience that next level of awakening and that next level of being a part of everything else other than yourself. See, right now we're capsules. We're in a boat. Our own personal bodies, our own personal vessels are everything other than everything else. So basically everything other than yourself is God and the relationship of what you're going to have in the afterlife. So you're never just one reincarnated living thing. You're a part of all living things when you're gone. The only time when you're not with everything else is when you're alive. So to be given back to the earth, and I don't care what religion, to give him back to the earth means you're just now a part of it forever. It's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing to be promised that death. And I think the people, our heroes, are men and women who accept that. They accept knowledge and know, hey, man, I'm going to go out and I'm going to put my life on the line every single day. First responders, They're going to put a uniform on. They're going to put a badge on. Our military, our veterans. I'm going to put a uniform on. I'm going to strap a weapon on and put my Molly kit, and I'm going to roll into battle, knowing that there's a chance that death might happen. But God, I am grateful for that opportunity today. Amen. And that's the difference between looking at a life as a non-believer and saying, well, after I'm gone, it's just black silence for me. Well, that might be the beginning of your eternity, but after a while, you don't have a choice. You still have to become a part of the system here, whether it's a part of the environment, whether it's a part of the astro embodiment of the cosmos and the universe. It doesn't matter. You're a part of this, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter what you believe. There's a physical element to this thing, and that thing is what I carry around in my heart, it's my soul, and I believe that once it's finished inside this vessel, it just moves into absolutely everything else. It's not a spontaneous thing. It's an eternal thing. But I will, at one point in time, just like every other person that walks the face of this earth, be a part of every other thing that walks the face of this earth after I'm gone.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing, and a great way to look at it. We all are trying to figure out what that spiritual connection is, but being part of something bigger and being accountable to that. It's one thing if you're agnostic or atheist or you believe something else. It's another thing if here's a thought I've been having lately is we've got so much disdain towards one another and polarity, and we're focused on whatever the things are, privilege and things like this. If we all focused on seeding our own damn yard, we'd be a little less worried about someone else's grass. And I think spirituality and being focused on that, whether or not you believe, is really irrelevant. Like, what are you accountable to? Are you accountable to yourself? Are you taking care of your own space as much as you can? And if you don't have that capacity, then you should reach out for the help that is out there. But to claim to have all the answers, or to claim to not have to do that, to be accountable, to not have to mind your own yard first, man, that's really it's not a good position to start things, an interaction with somebody else, especially online, where it's easy to be very unkind and unhuman to other people.
That's one of the great things too, that we find balance. And I'm probably guilty of not being as balanced as I can be, but I also really appreciate people like Dave, who are very unabashed, very candid, and unafraid to talk about their faith. And I think by surrounding myself with people like Dave really gives me different perspective. He gives me balance, and having people like that in your life, especially if you're not a man of the cloth or someone that is a true believer or has strayed from that faith of the traditional parochial church and what that is. And I grew up in the church as an altar boy my whole life. And now I look at things through some areas, but to have people like Dave around me really does bring balance. And I think that's an important thing, because I don't know, this may be the first show we've done together that we've gotten a solid amen laid down. I'm sure there's probably others out there, but you don't get that a lot, because Americans do feel there's a stigma by proclaiming your faith, whatever it is, whatever you believe in. And I think, again, going back to patriotism, what this country was founded on, and the freedoms of speech and freedoms of religion that we enjoy, Dave is absolutely a great example of that. So, I mean, again, we're just making a statement here that it makes me proud to be connected with people like Dave. So keep that up.
Yeah, and let me say this too. It's also okay to be spiritual, and it's not a negative thing. Somehow or another, we've come to put all religious people into this box of they're all pedophiles, or they're all Bible thumpers, or they're all this. No, that's not the case at all. Life is a complex thing. A society is even more complex. Life is a cubed, multivariate equation, and if you think one simple thing is the answer, you're likely missing 5 million other options. I always say, especially in combat, there's a million ways to get this thing right. There's a million ways to get it wrong, and most of those things are overlapped and are the same thing. Outcomes. This is why it's better just to focus on your own business. And if you're in my business, go get some business, because I'm trying to get things right as much as I can. Don't complicate it for me. And And I love the fact that you are proud about your patriotism, and I love the fact that you're proud about your faith, because those are good things. Those are not bad things, and it's crazy that we have to even caveat that or defend it. It's we are definitely living a weird time, and we can all use a little more spiritual accountability and pride in who we are, because America is a good country. We do, like you said, man, if there's a disaster somewhere, what ship is going to come up and start creating fresh water for you? Is it going to be a Chinese ship? Is it going to be a Sri Lankan ship? Or is it going to be an American ship? How many other countries have a Rubicon? And Team Rubicon is incredible. Grab some chainsaws, grab a plane ticket, and get over there, and we'll start helping. We'll start responding before the first responders even can, because that's what we do here in America. And so, man, thanks for reminding me of that, because sometimes I get lost in that stuff too. So I really appreciate you bringing that message today.
Well, no doubt. And again, I appreciate you having me on. It's one of those things that you say, patriotism and faith, and reminding, others about it is, listen, you got to be honest with yourself too. It's not always going to be there. It's not always going to be. Nothing is. You even said it yourself. You get kind of disillusioned about what we are as a country, and then you start reading and watching the news, and then you start starting to question. And the same with faith. You start watching around what's happening in lives. You look at that horrible tragedy, the limousine that happened in New York, and I had friends that lost their lives, and numerous family members in one horrific accident. You start questioning why God is doing what He's doing, and it will make you, sort of take a step back and be like, maybe this isn't such a great idea for me to be prophesying about, all this faith and religion and mix it with patriotism. But at the end of the day, I've never seen anyone. A buddy of mine put this in a really great perspective to me. He was a heroin addict. And he said to me, Dave, he's like, I've turned what I used to call a life into something actually what I deem as important. And I said, well, what was it? He's like, well, I never really realized that, the time, but, I've never met everybody that I've helped. I said, the biggest way to help them is to let them know that he's never met anyone who quit heroin whose life got worse. Right. So it's like, this guy quits heroin and his life gets better. Then he prophesies about that to other heroin addicts who say, hey, listen, you can do all the heroin you want, but at the same time, at some point in time, the party's got to end. And when you do, things are going to actually get better for you. So that's why I continue my message. My Music on a Mission does have that mission. It's a mission of patriotism, and it's a mission of faith. It's a mission of family, because these are positive things. If you're a patriotic, God-fearing family man in this country, you are a positive element to its continuation and to its foundation. If you are not a patriot and you wish to destroy it, or if you're not a faithful person and you wish to question where and why we have our laws that are built on faith, or if you're not a family person and you've decided maybe to turn your back on those who needed you the most, you're creating discourse. You're creating a problem with the foundation. You're creating a problem at the big level of what is keeping this country in the state it is, and that is a free nation. So I asked people, after I get done after I finish whether it be I do like national anthems, or I do God Bless America, or I do my whole show called Music on a Mission, I ask them in the beginning, I say, do we have any patriots in the house? And, there's usually like, yeah, we got some patriots in here. And then after the show, I ask them that same question in a very specific manner. Do we have any God-fearing, freedom-loving, flag-waving patriots in the house? And the whole room explodes, because I've now shown you what my envisionment of patriotism is, as a veteran, as a family man, as a supporter of the first responders and their police, and what's right in this country, and bringing God and faith back into our schools. I've shown you all those positive elements and aspects that we're slowly losing in this country, that are slowly being eroded from us because of people with different non-believing ideas. And at the end, it edifies what I was trying to explain the whole way through, but it changes their perspective from the beginning to the end. It's 180 degrees in the opposite direction. People that were once clapping are now jumping out of their seats screaming, yes, I am a patriotic, God-fearing, flag-waving American, and dang it, I'm proud of it, and there's a reason why people need to be proud of it, and that is so this nation can continue.
So tell us what's next for you, Dave. What do you have on the horizon that's coming up? I know you got the new album out right now, but what else are you working on?
So I do have another album that I've got a few songs already put in place with. I'm actually going to be working alongside of a guy named One Time. He's actually a hip hop artist and he's in the police community. So I do a lot with the police community and I'm going to be continuing working with them. I talked to Scott. He's also on a speaking tour. I'm going to actually take Music on a Mission, and I have about 4 videos that are finished now. One for Amazing Grace, one to Into the Fire, one for Freedom Rings Blood of Heroes, one for Last Call, and the National Anthem. So it's 5 videos, but I'm actually going to put together a multimedia storyteller edition plus keynote of Music on a Mission. So at the end of the day, the album already listens like a movie. So if you get the album, it's like sitting down in a movie theater and really, really engaging into your audio, sensory, visual nerves, because you'll start visualizing things when you listen. It's that good. So go to DaveBrayUSA.com and get it right now. But at the end of the day, I want to take that and I want to put it in front of the masses. So I want to use the multimedia. I want to use the beautiful videos that I've gotten done. Some are shot in 8K, some are shot in 4K. These are some beautiful videos. So go to YouTube, check those out. And then I want to bring in the speaking elements from Music on a Mission. And I want to put it all together as a package of about 1 hour. It's going to be a keynote speech with entertainment and leave you feeling like you are the most badass patriot on the planet.
Yeah, Dave and I were talking this week about that. It's so cool because he's not just a musician, he's really a storyteller. And telling that story, whether it's through song or listening to Dave talk, that's going to be a powerful message, man. So I'm behind you 100% as usual. Keep it up, man. Keep up the mission. I'm so glad we got you on the Break It Down show today. And I look forward to our next meeting, man. We got great things ahead of us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so very much for having me on. This is Dave Bray USA signing out. I appreciate it one more time. Thank you. If you can, please send your people to DaveBrayUSA.com or tell them to check out Dave Bray USA on Facebook, or also the videos that are up on YouTube.